not sure I understand. By completely encompass, you mean that the layer is less than the diameter of the pipe?
Sure. What I really want to focus on here is the characterization of wood and block as it relates to subsurface flow within the wetland. So in these preferred flow paths at depth, I understand you may have a layer through which water is finding its flow path because of the nature of the material, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in order to completely block that flow, the interruption to that layer would have to be complete, correct?
Complete. No, I don't think so. I'm trying to use your analogy of the surface water dam. A dam doesn't completely block flow because there's some flow that goes over, of course, eventually.
Sure. And so it would be in part contingent on permeable layers in proximity to the preferred flow path, correct?
You don't understand what you're saying. Does it need to have another layer of preferred flow above the deeper flow layer?
I guess what I'm getting at here is, would it not be more accurate to say that such an interruption could affect flow as opposed to would block flow?
Would affect in the sense that it could partially block flow.
Partially block
flow. I mean the flow has to go someplace. You can't just bottle up water and have it suddenly stop and never come out at someplace. So.
Right. And so water has to find a place to go.
It has to find a place to go.
And
yes,
that place could be up and over the pipeline?
It could be up and over the pipeline.
It could be under the pipeline.
Could be.
And that's going to depend entirely on the subsurface characteristics of the soil permeabilities?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, you state in your testimony that no one knows if these permeable layers exist in wetlands along the pipeline route because the necessary data were not collected, correct?
Yes.
And the source of the entirety of that data that you reference here is subsurface, correct?
So, I'm sorry, repeat the question, please.
Sure. So, the statement that you agreed to was that no one knows if the permeable layers, and I'm understanding that to be the permeable layers that constitute the preferred flow path
in the
wetland exists because the necessary data was not collected. And my question for you is, the source of that data, the existence of these permeable layers and these preferred flow paths, is entirely subsurface, isn't it?
The source of the data. Enbridge and Bar had borings to it.
All right, let me try this again.
Okay.
Your statement is that no one knows if these permeable layers exist. And here we're talking about preferred flow path layers that are below the surface?
Yes.
Okay. Because the necessary data were not collected. And that's your statement, correct? And
yes.
The source of that data that you're asserting
that doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist presently, and it's entirely subsurface, correct?
Yes, if we want to see flow layers at depth, we'd have to look at depth in the subsurface.
And to obtain that data, you suggest that it's necessary, one would have to core at depth, at least to the depth of the trench along the entirety of the route, within each one of the wetlands crossed, correct?
Coring isn't the only way of looking for these layers.
And how else would one go about that?
You could sink small-scale beach piezometers and do what would be called slug tests to check the permeability of each layer as you go down. Slug tests are a way of checking permeability of the layer at depth.
And how would one monitor water movement subsurface along the entirety of the route within each wetland that was crossed?
It would be difficult to monitor the subsurface flow in its entirety.
Just based on scale?
Well, I guess I'm not sure exactly whether you're talking horizontal or vertical flows here. Horizontal flow would require multiple piezometers and to give you surfaces at the water aquifer potentiometric surface at depth. Our concerns are really with vertical flow here, and that's much simpler to define.
I mean, you stated in your testimony that it's, and you'll have to correct my characterization, I don't want to misstate the words, but that it's generally recognized that there's an upwelling of groundwater pressure in this area.
Only, well, it points of
Within the
groundwater
wetlands.
discharge, not just in the area in general. It has to have a place for the well to go.
So, in order to obtain the layer data for the preferred flow paths, we're talking about some subsurface investigation, whether that be coring or some other means.
Yes.
And if we're talking about understanding the subsurface water movement, either vertical or across the gradient, then we're talking about installing monitoring wells of some sort within that area, correct?
Yes.
And for us to understand how that would, how this water moves subsurface or the entirety of the preferred flow paths in the corridor of the pipeline, one would need to do that sort of investigation along the entirety of the pipeline, correct?
I would, I haven't been able, I'm not going to design a sampling routine right now for something like that or guess what that would be, but it would take some effort to figure out what would be a representative way of getting at these vertical gradients that we're guarding against.
And are you aware of any pipeline project affecting wetlands in Wisconsin for which this sort of data collection has ever been required?
No, I'm trying to think of mining projects I've heard of, but I can't think of anything specifically where they ask for vertical groundwater gradients.
Any subsurface linear projects affecting wetlands in Wisconsin?
That would require piezometers, is that what you're asking?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know of any.
Okay. Other than perhaps mining, any regulated project whatsoever in Wisconsin for which this data collection has been required?
This sounds way outside my expertise in this. I don't know about the whole state of Wisconsin. I've only really looked along here along
Okay,
files.
so, but in your testimony, you provided no examples of where this has ever been employed before.
No, people have ignored it too much, I think. I wouldn't.
I want to talk with you a little bit about compaction. And you state in your expert report and testimony that heavy equipment can cause compaction, particularly where soils are susceptible to compaction, correct?
Yes.
And you use the term ridge in a variety of ways to describe this compaction. How much compaction constitutes a ridge?
Well, a ridge is a shape. And compaction is a process. I can't tell you what that necessarily would be. I guess I'm struggling to understand why that would be misunderstood.
In your testimony, you state that a ridge could be the cause of damming of wetland flow.
Right.
And what I'm getting at is there's no definition of what extent of ridge that may be.
No, I guess I didn't give you a geometry of what the ridge would be, the size, breadth, height, things like that.
And it's true that different geometries of that ridge and depths of that ridge would potentially affect water resources differently, correct?
Oh, yes, yeah. I agree with that.
In your expert report, you cite to the publication The Legacy of Pipeline Installation on the Soil and Vegetation of Southeast Wisconsin Wetlands. Are you familiar with that study?
Yes.
And I believe you cite that for the premise that heavy equipment will create a compressed layer of wetland sediment within the construction corridor. Is that correct?
I can't remember if it was wetland sediment or upland soils in that case. I would need to be reminded of that.
If I make the representation to you that that was an evaluation of a pipeline construction corridor, would that refresh your memory?
Well, I remember there was one along a pipeline corridor. I can't remember the nature of the soils that were compressed.
Okay.
So,
Are you aware that in that study, the authors acknowledged that construction matting was not always used in the installation of the project?
I don't remember that, but I don't remember that. But
In this practice, or lack of practice, if we would refer to that as not using construction matting, would directly influence the level of compaction in a wetland, wouldn't it?
it would, yes.
And the authors, do you recall the authors presenting any discussion of a damming effect?
Well, my understanding was this was not done in wetlands. That this was, I thought it was an upland study, if I remember.
We'll come back to that
Yeah,
study.
okay.
We do have an exhibit I'd like to actually just ask for some, your view of some of the statements made in that study.
Sure.
So the authors in that study state that timber mats and load-bearing machinery should be used to reduce compaction during construction in wetlands. Do you agree with that statement?
I think they do alleviate. I think they're good practices, yeah. I would rather see them than not. So.
Absolutely. And the authors further state that pipeline companies should make every effort to avoid soil mixing in saturated soils. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
You suggest in your testimony that pre- and post-construction measurements of peat density should have been required. Again, you appear to suggest that this should be conducted for each wetland within the corridor. Is that correct?
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. I haven't designed. I just don't know what design I would put forth in order to sample these things.
So
It's asking too much.
apologies,
No,
I
I
need to
don't-
refrain from talking over you for your purposes and for our
I'm
board's
sorry.
purposes.
I'm supposed to slow down. So.
If I understand your testimony correctly, you're talking about the potential impacts from compaction spanning the route through wetlands because of the nature of the heavy equipment use adjacent to the trench, correct?
Yes.
And so if one were to want to understand pre- and post-construction measurements of peat density, those studies would have to be conducted for the entire extent of the corridor through wetlands, correct?
Well, entire extent already makes the supposition that that's the only design plan you could put forth in order to get an understanding of this issue. I think I would design. I would have to sit down and work with other people to design a sampling strategy for this. Now it's not my plan.
So bulk density is determined by core sampling?
Yes.
And lab analysis, correct?
Commonly, yes.
Are you aware of any pipeline project affecting wetlands in Wisconsin for which core sampling for peat densities has ever been required?
I have no experience in that.
And laboratory analysis of those samples?
I've done laboratory analysis of samples like that, but I don't know about pipeline projects in Wisconsin other than this.
I guess I expect a similar answer to the last series of questions, but are you aware of any wetland project in Wisconsin whatsoever for which core sampling and lab analysis of peat densities have been required?
No.
I want to talk with you a little bit about artesian conditions. In your pre-filed testimony, you state that digging the trench itself could cut into the highly pressurized underlying aquifer. By this, do you mean compromising a confining layer?
Yes, I think if possible.
And this would require the bottom of the confining layer to be at or conceivably near the depth of the trench, correct?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the depths of the confining layers that were pierced in the Line 3 artesian aquifer breaches?
I can't remember. I've read that report, but I don't remember the numbers exactly. I'd be happy to be refreshed on that. That would be good.
If I reported to you that for the Clearbrook breach, the bottom of the confining layer was identified at 15 to 38 feet, would that be consistent with your recollection?
Those numbers seem about right, yes.
Okay. And for the LaSalle Creek, 27 to 41 feet to the bottom of the confining layer,
Okay.
is that consistent with your recollection?
Yes.
Generally? And for St. Louis, 26.5 to 35 feet to the bottom of the confining layer?
Yes.
And for Moose Lake, 15.5 to 18.5 feet to the bottom of the confining layer?
Sure.
How do these depths compare to the trenching that's proposed for this project?
Well, they're deeper than what's proposed for the trenching itself.
Or would it be fair to say significantly deeper?
As a factor of 2.
What's your understanding of the depth of the trench here?
Well, I think my understanding about 10 feet, maybe plus or minus 2 or 3.
So there's no indication that trenching alone was responsible for the breaches in Minnesota, correct?
Correct. Yes. My understanding is they were really caused by the sheet piping.
And are you familiar with the depths of the confining layers that were identified through boring at Vaughn and Billy Creek?
The borings For the HDD sites?
Correct.
Yeah. No, in those borings, I don't remember the depths.
If I were to, so would, in your opinion, would trenching alone breach a confining layer if the bottom of that layer is around 40 feet?
No, it would not breach that layer.
Are you familiar with the depths of the confining layers identified through the boring for the HDD site at the Marengo River?
No, I don't remember that either.
Would trenching breach a confining layer if the bottom of that layer is found at 80 to 90 feet?
No.
Now, you state in your testimony that the shallower the ditch, the less likely cutting into the artesian aquifer would be, correct?
Yes.
And then I believe in your testimony this morning, you stated that the trench itself could theoretically have this impact, correct?
Theoretically.
But in reality, given the depth of trenching alone, it would be incredibly unlikely, would it not?
Depends on the depth of the confining layer. I mean, you have them in borings, but not in the wetlands.
Are you aware of any trenching activity in Wisconsin that's ever breached an artesian aquifer?
No.
And again, this would require a confining layer to be intercepted by the trench, correct?
Or construction activities related to building that trench, like sheet pile drainage.
Sure. And I would like to talk with you a bit about sheet pile, but just as it relates to the trench.
The trenching
method.
itself.
So the more realistic concern would be the installation of sheet pile, correct?
Yes, that's my understanding. I agree.
Based on the depth of that installation and the experience of that actually occurring in Minnesota, correct?
Sure, that influences our opinions. It's not the only way, but it's most likely, I think.
Now, I understand your contention, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding your contention, but that piezometers should be installed below the base of each wetland along the route.
Again, each wetland, I hate to say, I just can't, I'm not going to opine on how many are needed to give a representative number, right? Whether that's in every of the 700 some wetlands or not, or whether it's a representative sampling of those. We want to understand what's happening in a representative way along the route under the wetlands.
And a representative way for the purpose of understanding potential artesian conditions.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And potential construction practices which could interfere with that confining layer, correct?
Correct.
And so, as opposed to potentially surveying the entire route, would it be, I think you said a targeted approach to this, correct?
That would make sense.
So one way to consider a targeted approach would be to focus on those areas where a sheet pile may actually be used, correct?
If you knew where those areas are, yes.
Now, the piezometers are only to document the strength of upwelling pressures, correct?
Yes.
They do nothing to identify the presence or depth of the confining layer, correct?
In placing them, you might learn something about that. I mean, they're not completely unrelated, but the main purpose is to get the groundwater pressure at depth under the wetland.
Are you familiar with the construction practice of using trench boxes?
No.
I want to talk a little bit about methylmercury.
Okay.
And here, I will ask you to correct anything I misstate because your expertise is obviously greater than mine. I want to ask first, did you review the draft environmental impact statement that the Department of Natural Resources put out?
I did.
And did you provide comments to the petitioners in this case on that draft?
I did.
Did your memo discuss the production of methylmercury in any meaningful way?
It defines a meaningful way is debatable, but I did include methylmercury production as a potential concern.
If I cite to you from the memo that you provided,
Okay.
I believe your first reference to methylmercury in that presentation is that altered wetland soils can generate excess nutrients and greenhouse gases, as well as sulfate, which can increase mercury toxicity and harm wildlife. Do you remember presenting that statement?
That sounds about right,
And you
yes.
didn't elaborate on that statement in any way in that presentation?
Can't remember exactly. It's been a long time since I wrote that one. If you could show it to me, I could look, but I don't remember writing that.
Now, in your testimony, you state, it turns out that water level changes in wetlands are conditions that promote mercury methylation, correct?
Correct.
And in particular, a water level rise will feed sulfate to the microbes and create a propulsive methylmercury, some of which will escape downstream, correct?
Yes.
And a water level drop will generate more sulfate, and a subsequent water level rise will begin the cycle again.
Yes.
First, your premise here is dependent on water level changes, correct?
Mostly, yes.
And water levels fluctuate naturally, correct?
They do.
And sometimes widely.
Sure,
And-
yes.
And your familiarity with this area is no exception to that natural rule.
No, I agree. They annually or biannually. I mean, yeah, the interannual cycles are well known. It's a problem.
I'm just gonna interrupt for a second.
Sure.
You're slightly talking over each other.
Oh,
I just wanna
just a-
ask you to,
okay.
even if you can anticipate what the other person's gonna say, to wait a second.
I'm
So
sorry.
you're not talking over each other.
Understood, thank you. So methylation of mercury is occurring naturally in this system, correct?
It's difficult to call it natural. Mercury is in the environment because of man activities. In fact, sulfate is as well. We've loaded the system with both sulfate and mercury over the last 150 years, and ever since we burned coal.
Predominantly from the fuel choices that we've made as a society.
Yes.
Mercury exists in the environment.
Yes, the fuel choice is one of them, and then other industrial uses as well. But so mercury is not naturally this reactive in the environment.
No. However, these wetlands store mercury, correct?
They have an inventory of it, yes.
And these wetlands potentially have an inventory of sulfate as well.
As
correct?
well, yes.
And so these wetlands are also subject to natural changes in water level
Of course, yes.
Annually.
Probably annually. Yeah, I think that I would go along with that well enough. Yeah, sure.
And so the preconditions for methylation, as you stated them, are occurring naturally in the system, correct?
Yes,
Even if the mercury
itself is unnatural.
And your work, which demonstrated enhancement in methylation, was conducted by sulfate loading, correct?
Yes, one of the studies.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about the experimental peatland study just a bit.
Okay.
My understanding of that study is that you're taking enhanced loads of sulfate and inputting those into the wetlands, correct?
Yes,
And there's no suggestion that the project at issue here, the Enbridge Line 5 project, is loading sulfate in any way, correct?
correct.
Now, you've not cited any study which looked at potential enhancement of methylation from construction projects, correct?
Yeah, correct. I don't think so.
And so you offer no testimony at what rates methylation could occur corresponding to any particular water level change, correct?
I thought we cited our water level change paper that showed methylation as a consequence of water level changes.
As a consequence of water level changes, I guess what I'm getting at here, you've offered no testimony as to what rates methylation attributable to a construction project could occur, particular to any change in water level, correct?
From a construction activity specifically, no.
So if I understand the information you're presenting, I would characterize it as there is a potential for methylation that you would assert here?
Yes, there's a potential.
There's nothing you've provided us to characterize what the likelihood or magnitude of that potential is?
I don't see anything that decreases the likelihood of it happening. I mean, every example I know of where they've looked at water level changes has produced this dose of methylmercury. I don't, describing the magnitude is that's more difficult.
So to understand and to separate the potential increase in methylation from a construction project, that would require a pretty scientific, well-designed study effort, would it not?
To show the magnitude or the rate of
To show the magnitude, the rate, and to attribute that to any particular project.
I'm grasping at the idea that somehow this could not happen, given that it seems ubiquitously happening in the environment, that water level rise cause these things. And trying to demonstrate that with sampling downstream, I mean, there's nothing in place to do that right now. I guess I'm not willing to say that we're going to have the water level change and not have anything happen. It doesn't seem feasible to me. Something will happen, I think.
Again, to be relevant to the pipeline project, one would have to try to attribute the methylation to that project, correct?
Correct.
Given that we've got naturally occurring methylation here.
Yes.
And in order to try to attribute that particular reaction to the construction project, one would have to have essentially a full-blown demonstration study to try to isolate that cause. Isn't that correct?
I would have thought that demonstrating a water table rise in itself would be the dominant factor and precipitating factor of the problem.
And if I'm understanding, that could identify for us that potential methylation is occurring by virtue of that water level rise, but would give us nothing as far as what that rise results in, correct?
If you don't sample for it, no. If you don't measure the methyl mercury, no.
So in sampling for methyl mercury, you would acknowledge that that would capture methylated mercury from natural sources as well, correct? If one's just sampling in the abstract.
Yes.
And in order to sort out, if you will, or attribute any contribution to that methylated mercury from a particular project, one would have to design a full-blown study with controls over potentially years and years of study to even attempt to attribute that to a particular project, correct?
Well, the difficulty here is to say that just because we don't have a study that can show it, that somehow it doesn't occur. I think it is occurring. Whether we can measure for it or not, whether we have a design study to measure just for that. I mean, these are cumulative effect things. I mean, we have natural water level changes and potentially caused by pipeline changes. And I see them as being fundamentally the same process. And
Maybe more simply then, in order to attribute that to a particular activity, it's not natural causes, there would have to be some way to sort out that contribution, correct? I mean, without that, it's pure speculation as to what the contribution is between natural sources and if a project is contributing at all, correct?
If the mechanism is water level changes and the project causes water level changes, the consequences are additive, cumulative. And they are in small quantities, I'll give it that, but it's a potent neurotoxin. Small quantities matter.
And there is no way to sort out in the entirety of that quantity of methylated mercury what could be attributable to each particular cause of that occurrence, correct?
I don't think they can fingerprint sources that well during time, but
Because that's never been done anywhere, correct?
in construction settings.
In settings that looked at sulfate loading, for example, as a contributing factor to methylation, there had to be some control to try to separate out the natural water level fluctuations, for example.
In the sulfate loading study, water level fluctuations were not the dominant cause of the mercury methylation, and they were sorted out. In addition, we had further studies that showed that the water table rises and fluctuations added additional methylmercury loading to the system. So,
As it relates to the project that we're here to talk about today, you've offered no opinion as to what degree or any sort of value that the project's construction impacts could contribute to methylation of mercury, correct?
I cannot tell you the degree, that's correct.
And sorting that out, whether and to what degree, would be an intensely complex scientific exercise, would it not?
I'm afraid I just can't say for sure I know that it will. I can't give you a good study to say yes or no.
Even if one were to design such a study to try to attribute the contribution to methylation from a particular source, that would be on a demonstration basis, correct? Like breaking ground, essentially, correct?
Well, we know the sources of methylmercury tend to come from the wetlands. Those have been identified. There are isotopic studies that have done them and cited them. Like I say, I cannot tell you how much this is, the fraction more or percentage larger methylmercury production caused by a pipeline water table change. But I believe it to be directionally clear. It's going to add to the problem, not simply be washed away in the noise.
I don't want to dwell here too much longer, but just one further question on that. No one, yourself included, could tell us the magnitude or attributable contribution from a particular project under present methods, correct?
Okay. I'll go along with that finally.
Now, I think you touched on a couple of these points in your direct testimony today, but you cited the study, a compilation of mercury data and associated risk to human and ecosystem health from the USGS report from Burns 2020. Familiar with that report?
I am familiar with it.
And one of the pieces of information presented in that report is that the median value of mercury observed in the surface water of the Bad River tribal lands is more than twofold greater than both the wildlife criterion and human threshold for total recovery of mercury and water supply under the state of Wisconsin standards, correct?
Yes.
And so there's a significant amount of mercury in this system presently.
Yes.
And the study also reported that the results that they found indicate that humans and wildlife are generally not protected from adverse effects when ingesting water or aquatic organisms from the Bad River and its tributaries, correct?
Yes.
And the reason for that, again, is because there is a significant amount of mercury in this system presently, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, that report also found that litter fall represents the principal mechanism by which atmospherically deposited mercury enters the ecosystem in food webs and forested environments. Are you familiar with that conclusion?
In the forested environments.
And are you in agreement?
I can't recall that exactly. So.
Does that conclusion track with your understanding?
Yes.
I don't have further questions for you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from others?
And actually, before we get started, we're going to pass out some binders like we've done for the last few days of testimony with excerpted exhibits. We do have full copies of these exhibits available electronically if you need to view them, but we're also going to put them up on the screen, what we're looking at, but it might be easier flipping back and forth to view the binders, so we'll pass those around now. My name is Tom Hutchison. I'm with Foley and Lardner representing Enbridge today. Going to be asking you a few questions. Earlier, we reviewed your expert report in this matter, correct?
Yes.
And we reviewed the CV that you attached to that report, correct?
Yes.
Could you go ahead and turn to Exhibit 101 at page 22? Miss, correct. Yes. Yes, yes, understand, thank you. Are you there?
I'm there. Yeah.
Thank
I was
you.
looking for it here too. I didn't see it.
This is the copy of your CV that we reviewed earlier, correct?
Yes.
And this contains all of your relevant work history.
It does. Thanks.
So you're semi-retired now, correct?
Yeah, that's a pretty good description.
And before that, you were a professor for 23 years?
I was a senior researcher at the St. Croix Watershed Research Station. I had adjunct assistant professorship, but I didn't teach courses. I just advised graduate students.
Okay. And you were a researcher for about 28 years as well, correct?
I would have said closer to 30. Well,
Closer to 30.
yeah, but
And that was for the St. Croix Watershed Research Station?
starting in late 1995, yes.
And prior to that, you were with USGS for 5 years, correct?
Correct.
As a hydrologist?
Yes.
So it's fair to say then that most of your career has been spent in research, right?
Oh, yes.
I noticed there's no experience mentioned in your CV about pipeline construction or planning. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You're not an engineer, correct?
I'm not an engineer.
And your CV doesn't show any experience with or planning of trenching
Correct.
or sheet pile installation,
Correct.
horizontal directional drilling or
Yeah.
HDD,
Correct.
and blasting.
Correct. No blasting.
I want to talk a little bit about groundwater fed wetlands along the project right of way. Enbridge had a wetland delineation done in 2019 and 2020 as part of this project, correct?
Correct.
And Enbridge identified potential groundwater fed wetlands in its delineation for the project, correct?
I'm not sure. I think so, but I'm not sure how they would have defined groundwater fed wetlands. So I'm hesitant to say for sure that they did that, because I'm not sure how they determined that.
Okay. Can we turn to Exhibit 807, please? I just want you to look at the first page first. This is a copy of the final environmental impact statement for the project, correct?
Yes.
And we're going to go to page 413, that's 413. And you're there, correct?
I'm here on the screen. I didn't find it here. So
That's okay, whatever you prefer. I'm going to start reading from the first full paragraph on page 413. It says, during the 2019 and 2020 wetland delineations, Enbridge identified approximately 60 wetland complexes within the proposed Line 5 relocation project area that have or likely have groundwater seeps. Then it says, the DNR requested Enbridge evaluate wetland delineation and field data for known, likely, or possible groundwater-fed wetlands. This included reviewing data for presence of skunk cabbage and marsh marigold, which can be indicators for groundwater-fed wetlands. So, Enbridge did identify potential groundwater-fed wetlands in its wetland delineation, correct?
correct.
And this was done at DNR's request?
I'm not sure. I presume so. I don't know who requested me to do it, but yes. There was further work with the DNR, no? Well, I'm agreeing with you.
And Enbridge identified certain indicators of groundwater-fed wetlands, including groundwater discharge, correct?
I'm looking for evidence beyond the vegetation, which is useful, but I don't know if they had more evidence than that or not. I don't remember.
So do you see the sentence that says, Enbridge determined approximately 157 wetland complexes, approximately 50.3 acres, within their proposed Line 5 relocation corridor contained data that indicated the presence of seeps, springs, discharge, skunk cabbage, and marsh marigold.
Yes, there it is. Yeah, that's good.
So they identified those 5 indicators of groundwater-fed wetlands, correct?
Correct, yes.
And they concluded that there are 52 acres with those indicators
Yes,
and 162 wetland complexes, correct?
and the 157 plus 5?
Correct.
Yes.
And there are 101 acres of wetlands in the project area, is that right?
It depends on how you define them. I mean, there's indications from tabular data in the EIS that gave slightly different numbers, and so I was confused as to it wasn't entirely consistent what the acreage was.
Enbridge identified 101 acres of wetlands in its wetland delineation for the project, correct? I'll ask you, Mr. Almendinger, or Dr. Almendinger,
Yeah,
I
sorry.
apologize, to go to page 485 of the EIS.
Okay.
Do you see the paragraph in between the 2 tables that states approximately 101.1 acres identified as 452 wetland complexes and 867 discrete wetlands were delineated within the proposed project area.
I see that, yes.
So Enbridge identified 101 acres, 101.1 acres of wetlands within the proposed project area in its delineation, correct?
Yes.
So that would, and 452 wetland complexes in its delineation.
Yes.
So that means 52 acres out of the approximately 101 acres of total wetlands in the project area were ones that Enbridge identified as having indicators of being groundwater fed,
Yes.
and 162 out of 452 wetland complexes.
They didn't make casual. Yes, yes.
And the wetland delineation and EIS or any other permit document does not identify any additional areas with indicators of being groundwater fed wetlands, correct?
Given those indicators, no, you're correct.
I want to talk a little bit about aquifer breaches and artesian conditions.
Sure.
In your testimony, you claim that Enbridge did not properly evaluate the risk of encountering artesian conditions during construction, correct?
I don't think I said it was improper. I think I said it was incomplete.
Incomplete. But you testified earlier that DNR did have information regarding the presence of artesian conditions along the right-of-way.
Yes, they look for them.
They took borings in 2020, correct?
Yes.
And then Enbridge hired outside consultants to investigate the results of those borings and other data in 2022.
Yes, that's my understanding.
And then they conducted follow-up investigation of areas identified as having moderate risks of encountering artesian conditions in
Correct.
2022. I'm just going to remind you not to speak over me, just for the court reporter's sake. You didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, sorry.
The information on artesian conditions is located in Exhibit 816, Appendix G to the EIS, correct?
Yes, Appendix G.
I'm going to ask that we turn there now. So starting on page 3, that's section 3, the the start of the second paragraph. Are you there?
Yes.
It states, based on the lessons learned during construction of the Line 3 replacement project, Enbridge conducted extensive geotechnical investigations beginning in 2020 as part of its project-specific engineering and constructability analysis. These are the borings that were conducted in 2020, correct?
Yes.
And those borings are presented in Exhibit 824, is that right? Or, I'll withdraw that question. Please turn to Exhibit 824.
Appendix O, yes.
Appendix O, correct. And this appendix presents the soil boring logs, subsurface investigation reports, and geotechnical reports from the borings that Enbridge conducted in 2020?
Yes.
And Enbridge took 92 soil borings at 46 locations along the right-of-way as part of this process.
Yes.
They collected about 1,400 pages worth of data and analysis, correct?
Yes.
And this analysis included identifying soil types found with each boring?
By soil types, do you mean the different layers within the boring logs, or do
That's
you mean
correct.
the soil, the surface? Okay.
And they also noted indications of artesian conditions found for each boring, correct?
Correct.
The closest artesian condition identified was at a depth of 42.5 feet. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, I guess. I don't remember for sure, but I have no reason to
Let's-
dispute that.
Let's go to page 517. I'll represent that this is the boring done for Billy Creek. The second sentence of section B4, near the middle of the page, states, we encountered artesian groundwater at a depth of 42.5 feet in boring 41-2C. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Enbridge also found evidence of artesian conditions at around 128 feet elsewhere. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that was at Vaughn Creek, correct?
Yeah. No dispute.
And no other borings conducted as part of this analysis identified evidence of artesian conditions?
I don't know. I don't. Not that I know of.
You're not aware of any other borings
No.
that identified artesian conditions? And you agree that each of these borings, 42.5 feet and 128 feet, where artesian conditions were located, are below the depths of non-HDD construction?
Yes.
According to you, as you discussed earlier, Enbridge just did not look for artesian conditions in the right areas, correct?
Yes.
And that's because you say that testing was only done in uplands and should have also been conducted in wetlands?
Yes.
Let's go back to Appendix G at page 230, please. That's it, sorry, Exhibit 816. And for the record, this is Appendix G to the EIS.
Look here.
This is the site-specific HDD analysis for the Trout Brook crossing, is that right?
Yes.
And one of these site-specific HDD analyses was done for each HDD location along the project, correct?
Yes.
And borings were done for this location, that's right?
Yes.
And those were the borings we just looked at in Exhibit 824.
Okay. Yes.
Please turn to page 232. You see the section labeled subsurface conditions.
Yes.
And about midway through the paragraph, there's a sentence that starts with boring 37-C. Do you see that?
Yes.
And I'll read it out loud. Boring 37C is located approximately 245 feet east of Trout Brook and 30 feet south of the HUD center line with a delineated wetland boundary, within a delineated wetland boundary adjacent to the waterway. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
I read that correctly?
Let's just pass it.
Test?
Let's just go off the record for a moment. We're just having a technical issue and we will be back when we resolve it.
Test?
Right now? Check. Test.
Test?
All right, we were back. Sorry for the interruption. Please go ahead.
So sorry to go back to what we just did, but I previously read a sentence that said boring 37C is located approximately 245 east of Trout Brook and 30 feet south of the HUD center line within a delineated wetland boundary adjacent to the waterway. I read that correctly?
Correctly. Yep.
And now quickly, let's flip to page 236. For this, Dr. Almendinger, it may be easier to look at your screen, just because it's a small chart. This is a chart of the setting for this HUD site, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you see what's been identified as boring 37C
Yes.
right in the middle? And that's located within a delineated wetland, that's correct?
Correct. If I understand the stippling to be the delineation.
Right, right. I'm going to ask you to turn to page 143 of this exhibit. Are you there?
I am there. Yeah.
You see the sentence starting boring 5-E-2?
Yes, about 4 lines down.
Yes. It says boring 5E2 is located approximately 209 feet north of the proposed entry point and 311 feet west of the HDD alignment near an area with scattered wetlands, correct?
Correct.
And going down to the second to last sentence, third and second to last sentence of the paragraph, starting with boring 1E, do you see that?
Yes.
It says boring 1E is located 175 feet east of the HDD alignment and 880 feet south of the proposed exit point. It is in a clearing near an access trail in scattered forest wetlands, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to ask you to turn to page 269. Do you see the sentence in the first paragraph starting boring 43-1C1?
Yes.
And before I ask, I should say this is the HDD analysis for the Silver Creek crossing, correct? It's in
Correct, at the first sentence there.
the sentence I pointed to earlier says boring 43-1C1 is located on a trail just outside of a wetland boundary. Is that right?
Yes.
Can we turn to page 325, please? This is the HDD site-specific analysis for the Tyler Forks crossing, is that correct?
Correct.
And do you see the sentence starting, finally, boring 72C1 in the first paragraph?
Yes.
That sentence states, finally, boring 72C1 is found near the wetlands at the northeast end of the crossing location, correct?
Correct.
And then just one more of these. We're going to go to page 343. This is the site-specific analysis for the Potato River crossing, correct?
Yes.
Do you see the sentence starting with boring 75C?
Yes.
It states, boring 75C was performed in a heavily wooded area and is surrounded by one of the larger low-lying wetlands along the right-of-way, correct?
Yes.
And a few sentences down, do you see the sentence starting boring 79C1?
Yes.
It states, boring 79C1 is located about 80 feet south of the bank of the Potato River, just east of the delineated wetlands and environmentally sensitive areas. That's correct?
Yes.
So each of these locations that we just walked through, Dr. Almendinger, they are located within or adjacent to wetlands in the project area?
Yes.
And locations adjacent to wetlands will have pressure similar to those in wetlands?
Depends on how adjacent that means.
But a location that's close to a wetland would indicate whether it's above a confined aquifer to the same extent as though you were taking a boring within the wetland itself?
I won't concede that. I think that's out of bounds for me.
So on a broader level, you contend that Enbridge needed to test groundwater-fed wetlands, seeps, and springs because you assume that they have upwelling pressures, correct?
Yes.
But it's true that most groundwater-fed wetland seeps and springs are not located above confined aquifers.
Well, I haven't seen any surveys to know most or not. I'm not so sure I can see that either.
You're not aware of any groundwater-fed wetland seeps or springs in the project area other than those that we've identified already that are located above confined aquifers, correct?
Can you ask that again? I'm not sure.
You're not aware of any groundwater-fed wetlands, seeps, or springs other than those that are located above confined aquifers, other than those that we've already identified here today, correct?
When you say I'm not aware of them, does that mean that I think there are other upland, I think there are other upwelling sites, wetlands, that have not been identified?
But you have not identified any of them, correct?
No, I have not identified them.
And you wanted Enbridge to do more drilling in wetlands to search for evidence of these artesian conditions?
No, I would have used lesser impact methods, and drilling requires rigs and things like that. They're difficult to get in sensitive areas.
This is the piezometers, correct? You want Enbridge to test using piezometers?
I think, yes.
And by a piezometer, it's a short pipe with about a 6-inch well screen is how you describe it?
It depends, shortness is of course a matter of degree. They could be several tens of feet long, but
In your report, you present the depth of these piezometers as about 5 to 10 feet. Is that correct?
they can be that short. Yeah, the ones I use commonly are that short.
Is that what you are suggesting Enbridge would use for the project?
If I were them, I would use something deep enough to look for potential artesian conditions that could cause problems. I wouldn't limit it to 5 or 10 feet. I mean, that's asking for problems.
So you would send them to 15 feet?
As deeply as I could to get information that might be necessary. I can't answer that. I don't know.
And these are installed by pounding them down, is what you say in your testimony? Correct?
Yeah, I mean, the literature, the web page for the company that makes some of these things now, which I didn't use, but they say you can drive them to 25 feet. I have no reason to dispute that. It could be more or less.
So this means you would hammer them down?
Hand hammering them.
Hand hammering?
Yeah,
So they're not drilled or bored?
correct.
And you would want this to be done in all 867 wetlands, or
I'm
I'll
not going to
withdraw
design a
that.
sampling program for you. I don't know how many would be representative. I think we would have to, that would be a necessary discussion to have, but no, I don't.
sorry, you said a necessary discussion to have?
It would be a necessary discussion to have. Experts would have to get together and come together to consensus about what would be representative.
But you haven't developed a criteria for what wetlands Enbridge should have tested using piezometers for the presence of
No, I
artesian
haven't done
conditions?
anything like that. No, it's out of my purview in this case. Not what I was asked to do.
Would you say it should be done in any groundwater fed wetland?
Again, I would want as much information as possible, but to say any groundwater fed wetland would be, I don't know what that number is.
So you just don't know where these should have been tested, correct?
They should be tested in wetlands.
But you don't know
Didn't
the
say every
exact
wetland. A representative number of wetlands.
Sorry. She didn't catch that because you both were the same time. I didn't catch
Sorry.
it either. So can you please repeat what your answer was?
I can't tell you how many wetlands at present I would sample for to get to sub-wetland pressures. I don't have a design plan for the project.
Is there a risk involved with installing these piezometers?
I don't think so. I think they're too small diameter to cause a potential breach.
So it's not possible that they could cause a potential breach?
Anything's possible. I don't think it's probable. I think it's highly, highly improbable. And I've
But-
never seen it. And I've done it.
But it is possible, correct?
Well, I've never seen it. I'm not here to say what possibilities are on that thing.
Even if you're hammering them down to depths of below 20 to 30 feet like you suggested?
That it would, what's the problem with that again? That it would cause an aquifer breach? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I've never seen that happen. Of course,
So piezometers test for what you call upwelling ground pressures, that's correct?
they test for the pressure in the aquifer, whether it's upwelling or not.
And you say that these exist anytime there's water discharging to the surface in a wetland, correct?
That's the conventional wisdom, yes. When you have discharging water into a wetland, there's upwelling groundwater pressure, and that would give you higher pressure in the in the aquifer underneath the wetland than is at the surface of the wetland.
So as I understand it, this can be different from a pressures caused by a confined aquifer, correct?
Different in what way?
I'll withdraw that question. So the upwelling ground pressures that exist in a wetland that's discharging water,
Yes.
these wetlands are, or these pressures are not due to the presence of a confined aquifer.
Not necessarily, no.
So they could be, they could result from an unconfined aquifer.
Yes.
But pressures from an unconfined aquifer are significantly lower than those from a confined aquifer, correct?
Typically, yes.
So you could separate these upwelling pressures that you've discussed into really two main categories, right? So the first category would be artesian conditions created by a confining layer of material like clay, correct?
Correct.
And the conventional wisdom is that when most people say artesian conditions, they're talking about those that are due to a confining layer, correct?
That is conventional. Yeah, that's conventional usage.
And the greatest risk of deep disturbance construction activities like sheet piling, breaching a confining aquifer is due to these kinds of artesian conditions, right?
Yes.
And then the other category of upwelling ground pressures are those that discharge groundwater to the surface in groundwater-fed wetlands, according to you, correct?
Yes, even under unconfined conditions. That's, I think, what you're getting at.
Is it your testimony that these can result in uncontrolled upward flow to the same extent as a confining layer? Or I'll withdraw that question, ask it a different way. Is it your testimony that these upwelling ground pressures can result in uncontrolled flow to the same extent as breaching a confining layer?
Yeah, no, the shallow, unconfined aquifer discharges, those pressures are usually unremarkable. It's the confined pressures that we really are concerned about.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Exhibit 816. At page 3. So following the geotechnical analysis, that the borings that were done in 2020, Enbridge had 2 consultants conduct additional analysis of this data, correct?
Yes.
One by Lake Superior Consulting in 2022, correct?
Yes.
And one by Bar Engineering.
Yes.
And the Lake Superior Consulting analysis evaluated the boring data as well as publicly available data from DNR's well index.
Yes.
And they determined a potential confined aquifer at the Marengo River HDD crossing. Is that correct?
I can't remember exactly, but clearly I don't have these sites memorized. So.
I would like to turn to Exhibit 807 at page 314. And do you see the second full paragraph starting with the milepost 10 to milepost 18?
Yes.
So it states, the milepost 10 to milepost 18 segment of concern begins where an old railroad grade crosses the corridor north of River Road near the Marengo River and then southeast of the Billy Creek crossing. And then further down in this paragraph, it states at the Marengo River crossing. Do you see that sentence? It's a few sentences down.
Yes. Moved on.
It states, at the Marengo River crossing, soil borings show the bottom of the clay layer, which is likely to serve as a confining layer at 80 to 90 feet below the surface.
Yes.
So that's a confining layer that LSC identified in their analysis, correct?
Yes.
And LSC did not identify any other evidence of artesian conditions?
In those borings, no.
Bar Engineering also did a study in August of 2022, correct?
Yes.
And turning to page 94 of Exhibit 816. I think you may be on the wrong exhibit, Heather. It's 816, 816. '94. Are you there, Dr. Almendinger?
I guess I'm not sure I have the right page number here, but is the screen correct?
Yes, page
Okay.
94
Of 816.
of Exhibit 816. Do you see the
Yes, I see that now.
you see the sentence starting, a bar senior hydrogeologist?
I'm familiar with artesian flows, yes.
So after compiling data, Barr provided analysis of each boring in the geotechnical reports that we looked at earlier, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And this analysis included boring depth, is that right?
Yes.
Initial and final depth of water,
Yes.
ground surface elevation at the boring location,
Yes.
hydrologic and textural characteristics of the deposits to the surface,
Yes.
depth of top and bottom of upper lower permeability deposits, which could function as a confining layer,
Yes.
textural characteristics of uppermost lower permeability layer,
Yes.
and the characteristics of the permeable layer below the uppermost lower permeability layer, correct?
Yes.
And Barr also placed likelihoods on encountering artesian conditions at different areas along the right-of-way, correct?
Yes.
And separated them into 3 categories, low, moderate, and high.
Yeah, medium was whatever maybe they use moderate elsewhere as well. Yeah, low, moderate, high, as they say here.
None were found at the high likelihood category, correct?
By these definitions, no, correct.
And some were found at the moderate likelihood, I believe 9 different areas.
Okay, yeah.
And the low likelihood was the rest of all the borings, correct?
Yes.
And Barr identified 6 areas that potentially warranted additional investigation, correct?
Yes.
And these were areas where potential sheet piling might overlap with the areas that they identified as having moderate likelihoods of encountering artesian conditions.
I can't remember exactly, but that sounds right.
And after Barr made those recommendations, Enbridge did conduct additional investigation at those areas, correct?
Yes.
As well as other locations where sheet piling might be used, correct?
I'm not sure.
But during that investigation, Enbridge did not identify artesian conditions at any of those locations, correct?
I can't recall. Sorry, I'm not trying to be
We go to page. So You disagree with DNR's conclusion that artesian conditions will not be encountered at construction depths? Correct?
I don't think we know.
DNR concluded that artesian conditions are not likely to be encountered at construction depths, correct?
I can't conclude that, are you saying the DNR concluded that?
Did DNR conclude that?
I don't know.
But you conclude that that's not correct according to you, correct?
I concluded there could be confined aquifers they didn't find under the wetlands.
And you conclude that sheet piling presents a risk of breaching artesian conditions, correct?
If they are found in the wetlands.
Sheet piling is used for protection of personnel where soils in the trench create a risk of wall failures, correct?
Yes.
And in these locations where that risk is present, sheet piling has to be used, correct?
I'm not a construction expert, so I have to defer to the experts on that.
And sheet piling, according to you, is driven to a depth of 20 feet. Is that correct?
It's driven to variable depths, it's not always to 20 feet.
I believe in your testimony you stated that sheet piling would be driven to a depth of 14 to 20 feet. Does that ring a bell?
My understanding is it's driven to 2 to 3 times the depth of the trench.
And the depth of the trench is around 7 feet, correct?
That's one end member of the depth. Could be deeper.
But you're not aware of any plans by Enbridge to dig a trench deeper than 7 feet, correct?
Not that I know of what Enbridge said. I have no idea what the plans are on that. Only conventional depths is what I know.
And DNR explains that in the permit that Enbridge must minimize the depths to which sheet piles will be driven, correct?
Yes.
And Enbridge also is required to limit the use of sheet piling only to those areas where it's required to ensure the safety of the workers in the trench, correct?
Yes.
You also say that HDD presents a risk of breaching a confined aquifer, correct?
I think it could. I really am not much of an expert in HDD, so my opinion is simply that it could breach a confined aquifer.
Enbridge developed those site-specific plans we looked at earlier for each HDD, correct?
Correct.
And as part of those plans, they determined where artesian conditions may be present?
They did.
And they designed the paths for each HDD to avoid those places, correct?
I believe so.
In the unlikely event that Enbridge were to breach an artesian aquifer, that can be restored, correct?
It depends on how you define restoration. I'm not sure how successful that can be.
You say that grouting has had little success in remediating aquifer breaches. Is that right?
My understanding is difficult.
But it can be done, correct?
It can be done.
And you're aware of the aquifer breaches on Enbridge's Line 3 project in Minnesota, correct?
I am.
And all of those sites have been remediated. Is that right?
I am not privy to the definition of remediation in this case, how much flow had to be stopped in order to be considered to be successful. I'll have to leave that to Minnesota DNR's conclusions. I don't know what those are. So.
Next, I want to talk a little bit about damming groundwater flow, which you've discussed with a couple others so far. You contend that the pipeline or construction of the pipeline can create water table elevation changes along the right-of-way by damming groundwater flow, correct?
Yes, it's been seen before.
And you identify two main ways that you claim the project could block groundwater flow and affect water table levels. The first is from the pipe itself acting as a dam, is that right?
Correct.
And the second is due to soil compaction from heavy equipment or trench dewatering.
Correct.
Okay, so let's start with the pipe itself acting as a dam. You testified in your pre-file testimony that the primary preferred flow path of the pipe is the primary preferred flow path of groundwater is through the surface layer of emergent vegetation, and that's located 1 to 2 feet below the surface.
Yeah, approximately that, yeah. I agree.
Here, the pipeline is to be installed with about 3 feet of top cover. Is that right?
Yes,
So that's below the layer of primary preferred flow, right?
correct.
You also say that the pipeline could block flow paths at 5 to 10 feet below the surface layer. Is that right?
If there are preferred flow paths at depth in a wetland, particularly peatland, could be about that depth.
This isn't the primary preferred flow path in a wetland, correct?
I don't know how it would compare to the top layer, but it seems likely the top layer is dominant.
So for the pipeline to dam flow at this depth, I'll restart that question. For the pipeline to dam flow at this depth, the flow path would have to just happen to be at the exact depth of the pipe, correct?
Yes,
And just happen to be the same thickness as the pipe?
well, you're trenching all the way to the depth of the bottom of the trench, so things that would block flow throughout the entire depth of the trench should be considered, not just the pipeline itself, I guess. So if there are low permeability fill over the pipe, then that too could block flow.
Is it your testimony that low permeability fill will be used around the pipe that will dam groundwater flow?
My understanding is they're going to try to replace the material that they took off out of the trench in the same order in which they replaced it. To the degree that was low permeability to begin with, it would be disrupted and in fact compacted down to a likely less permeable than an intact layer.
But it would just be the same, as you said, it would be the same material that was present before pipeline construction, correct?
Just the structure's been disassembled and re-put back into a pile on top of it. I don't know if the permeability would be the same as before or not. I can't say that.
Okay, let's turn to compaction. You claim that the soil will be compacted by construction equipment, such as the backhoes used for trenching?
Yes.
And that this will dam groundwater flow?
I said it potentially could.
So it's not guaranteed that will happen, correct?
Of course not.
This equipment is typically located along the side of the trench where it can drive along the right-of-way?
Correct.
So the potential effect you talk about where the compaction could decrease groundwater flow and by acting as a dam, that only applies to those areas where the vehicles and equipment are actually located along the side of the trench, correct?
Of course, they travel up and down this route alongside the pipeline all the way, so that it's not just where they are at the moment, it's the entire corridor, I would presume, alongside the pipeline where the matting would be laid down, I presume.
But only where they're traveling, correct?
Yes, yeah.
So not to the rest of the larger right-of-way where they're not traveling, right?
Not compaction by the equipment, of course, that's restricted to where the equipment is.
So before we talk more about the equipment that is used, I first wanted to just generally discuss the sequence of trenching for the project. So first, the right-of-way is cleared, correct?
It's cleared of woody vegetation is what you mean?
Yes,
Okay,
that's correct.
correct, yes.
And then the topsoil is stripped.
And you're talking about wetlands or upland settings, or both?
Both.
This is on the trench itself, that they excavate the topsoil away?
The trench itself, as well as the area, the
I don't think they're stripping topsoil away from the entire right-of-way in the wetlands. That's the living layer. Are they? I don't think so. I think they're only doing that in the upland areas.
So you're not aware of the exact areas where they're stripping topsoil, correct?
The figure I saw showed that in the wetlands, they were leaving the topsoil intact except where they're actually trenching. I'm sorry, I don't have the figure number. I know I've seen this at some point in the past, but
One moment, sorry. So topsoil is stripped from above the trench, correct?
from above the trench itself, yes.
And then the trench is excavated by removing the native material in the trench line.
Yes.
And then that removed material that has been disturbed is set aside next to the pipeline, correct?
Yes.
And that's set on the opposite side of the trench from where the equipment is located, right?
I believe so. I don't know if there's any spoil material on the equipment side or not. I think it's all on the other side, but
Okay. And then the pipeline is placed into the trench, right?
yes.
And the trench is backfilled with the native material that was just removed, right?
Yes.
And then the topsoil is spread and planted over the top of the trench.
Again, are you talking about wetlands or are you talking about uplands?
Wetlands.
Both wetlands? Well, the top layer of soil and wetlands is the living layer, and it's, I think their plan is to replace it and plant it, but of course it had property was in it from before when it was, just before it was disrupted. I mean, I'm not sure what happens to the living plants after they've taken the topsoil off and piled them up someplace. They probably don't survive.
So can we go to Exhibit 631 at page 22, please? This is the permit for the project, correct?
Yes.
And looking at condition, starting with condition 226. See that now?
Yes.
It states, when constructing in wetland areas without standing water, you shall segregate the topsoil from the subsoil.
Yes.
And then at condition 227, it states, in wetlands with standing water, you shall segregate as much of the organic layer as possible based on site and saturation conditions, correct?
Correct.
And then I will ask that we go to condition 242 on page 23. You see that now, Dr. Almendinger?
Yes.
It states, you shall implement the ECP's wetland and water body restoration post-construction monitoring plan. This plan incorporates native seed mix as well as bare root stock to establish wetland vegetation.
Yes.
So after the trench is backfilled, they spread to the extent that topsoil or the top of the organic layer was removed. They spread that and replant for new vegetation. Correct?
Yes.
And during this time, the trench is only open for 3 or 4 days in wetlands, correct?
I believe that's the plan. I don't know how variable that is.
Enbridge is required to use measures to prevent compaction to achieve this, I'll withdraw that. Enbridge is required to use measures to prevent compaction, correct?
Correct.
We discussed matting, that was one of them.
Correct, yeah.
Another one is using low ground pressure equipment where possible. Is that right?
Yes?
So that's equipment that's on tracks as opposed to wheels, right?
I thought it could include larger tires on some wheeled vehicles, but tracks would be appropriate as well.
And the idea with that is that it distributes the weight of that equipment more so than it would on regular wheels, correct?
Correct.
Which reduces the compaction caused.
There are, wheels do are you saying wheels cause compaction? Are you saying the track vehicles also or don't cause compaction?
The tracked vehicles cause less compaction than you would expect compared to vehicles with wheels.
Correct. Yeah.
Enbridge has also noted that it could suspend construction on vulnerable soils during wet conditions to reduce compaction. Is that right?
Yes.
And that would reduce the potential for compaction, correct?
If they suspend operations, yes.
Enbridge has also said that it must restore compacted soils, right?
Yes.
You also claim that dewatering would lead to compaction in wetlands. Is that right?
It has and it can.
Sorry. You claim that this reduces the pore pressures and causes wetland soil particles to condense, correct?
They rearrange closer together, yes.
And that decreases the groundwater level, according to you?
It would, temporarily at least, during the time of dewatering.
So Mr. Wulo, Enbridge's expert, he modeled the drawdown effects of dewatering in his report, correct?
He did.
And he concluded that groundwater levels show only a few inches of drawdown within 5 feet of the trench after 5 days of pumping.
He did.
And you say his model doesn't account for a permeable surface layer that's delivering water to the trench, right?
Yes, that would add complications.
So you're saying that the hydraulic conductivity or the permeability is higher than Mr. Wulo modeled?
Only in the surface layer there. And I don't know, and to assume the rest of the layer is clay is one of his assumptions. It's not a terrible assumption, but it's typically not uniform.
So there's two variables that determine the amount of drawdown from dewatering, correct? And those are correct?
Yes.
And those are hydraulic conductivity or permeability is one, right?
Correct.
And then the other is specific yield.
Yes.
So specific yield, as I understand it, is the measure of how quickly water in soil pores drains due to gravity. Is that right?
It's the amount of drainable porosity in a given amount of aquifer material. And the smaller it is, it's part of the delay. It has to drain through that area.
So the higher the specific yield is, then the slower the drainage would occur. Is that right?
I think it's the other way around.
So
Spend some time there.
So the drawdown in any event would take longer to occur in soils with lower specific yields compared to soils with higher specific yields. Is that right?
Now you're asking things I have to go back and look at my groundwater text on. It is one of the variables, and it does affect the time. Mr. Willow was right on that. I'm not really disputing his model as it was done.
So you're not disputing Mr. Zullo's model then, correct?
Only that it was, I think, incomplete. It didn't include all the components that were right there in the wetland that were important.
But you're not completely sure how the specific yield will interact with the hydraulic conductivity to affect.
Yeah,
drawdown.
correct. I would need to review that.
Okay. So earlier we heard you say that equipment is going to drive up and down the right of way, basically on what's called a road. You referred to it as a road, right?
I said it could, as a potential road, it's like an access road for the vehicles.
So in your report, you stated that linear infrastructure features fundamentally similar to roads, given any significant compaction of sediments along the pipeline corridor. Hence, pipelines will increase the cumulative environmental impact at least as much as a typical road. Is that correct?
To the degree that I added a caveat there about the increase in density. And so if in fact that compaction is as high as it would be for a road, then they would act like a road.
Are you familiar with road construction?
Somewhat, yes.
I mean, we see it all the time, right? We drive
I
by
worked
it all the
construction crews for 5 years in high school and college.
So then you know when roads are built, they need to be heavily compacted, right?
Yes.
So that's pushing down with road graders driving over them repeatedly to compact.
Yes.
And you do this so that the road doesn't crack or buckle.
Correct.
Do you? Is it your testimony that the soils in this project will be equally as compact as a road?
No, I don't think it will. I think that's an end number, but I have trouble seeing the wetland compaction being that large. Even some compaction across some properties.
You also take issue with Enbridge's water table level monitoring in wetlands. Is that correct?
Yes.
You're aware that Enbridge has monitoring, wetland hydrology monitoring plans in place, correct?
Yes.
You discussed those earlier, right?
Yes.
And these are found in the water quality monitoring plan, right?
It's not just water quality, but water levels as well, I would say.
It's also in the post-construction restoration monitoring plan.
Okay.
Right? And is your understanding that these monitoring will occur with monitoring wells, right?
For water levels.
For water levels, yes.
Yes.
And that these wells will be about 15 inches deep, correct?
Yes.
At the 13 locations you looked at before, right?
Yes.
So 26 total wells that Enbridge selected, right?
Yes.
And then a reference wetland as well, right?
Yes.
So 14 total sites. You wanted more of these monitoring wells placed, correct? You said 13 isn't enough.
Yes.
And are you aware of the criteria that Enbridge used to determine the locations of each monitoring well?
If I recall, a number of them were for the blasting sites where shallow bedrock occurred. That didn't seem to be representative of all the wetlands along the site.
Could we go to Exhibit 831, please? At page 18. Are you on that page, Dr. Almendinger?
Yes.
And you see the list numbered 1 through 8 there?
Yes.
And these are the criteria that were used to select the list of wetlands where groundwater elevation, where the wells might be installed?
Okay.
That's correct, right?
Correct.
And these criteria include that the wetland is located within the mainline construction corridor, right?
Yes.
And that it's crossed by the pipe center line
Correct.
for at least 100 feet, right?
Yes.
And these wetlands should also have high functional values, is that right?
Yes.
High quality or medium quality with high floristic integrity, right?
Correct.
And should be selected in areas where blasting is both anticipated and not anticipated, correct?
Correct.
And to your knowledge, Enbridge selected locations that met this criteria, correct?
Yes.
And this criteria would identify wetlands that would be susceptible to water level impacts caused by the project, correct?
I don't know that these are the exclusive sites that are susceptible to water level changes, but these would be susceptible to water level changes. Yes.
But if water level changes did occur based on construction, you would expect them to show up in these wetlands, correct?
Yes.
Do you have a number of wetlands that you think Enbridge should have monitored?
No, once again, I don't have a monitoring plan in place, and it would take some head scratching to do that.
You haven't selected a criteria that's different from the one that Enbridge presented here, right?
No, I haven't.
You also say that the 15-inch depth of monitoring wells is too shallow, right?
I think I meant to say at least that it was only too shallow in cases where the substrate was so loose it was unsteady. We want to make sure that the well is solidly in place so its elevation doesn't get jostled around by activity or measuring. It's not that it's wrong, it's just that it could be better in some cases.
So your concern is that the wells could collapse, is that right?
I walked around in wetlands enough to know that some things are unsteady when you stick them into the top 15 inches of a wetland that's very loose and saturated that way. So
And these wells are being continuously monitored, correct?
they'll have data loggers inside of them, yes.
So if one were to collapse and stop being able to take accurate readings, that would show up in the data logging, correct?
Yes.
And then could be replaced, right?
They could be replaced.
Monitoring is to continue on these wells until the performance standard is met, is that right?
Yes.
And you take issue with the performance standard that Enbridge presented, right?
It was not understandable to me in the way it was written.
You're familiar with the Army Corps of Engineers, correct?
I am.
So you know that this is a standard that the Army Corps of Engineers provided as well?
The well construction methods were standardized, yes.
And have you reviewed the Army Corps of Engineers guidelines for well construction?
The papers I saw, I did. And in those papers, I didn't see the 20% criterion listed, so.
So you're not aware of Enbridge developing this standard with the Army Corps of Engineers, correct?
No.
That's a good stopping place for me, Judge. I have maybe one last line of questioning, but I think it would be better to pick that up after lunch if possible.
It'll exceed the 5 minutes we have, is that what you're saying?
It will.
Okay, then we can break here for lunch. Anything that the parties